All right, I'd like to call to order the Historic Preservation Commission special meeting today. And I'd like to get Dr. to say the date, the 19th, the day of October. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Art, would you do that for us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Time for roll call, I believe.
Okay, roll call for today's special meeting. Ashlyn is excused. Benoit is excused. Ward?
Here.
Lemaster?
Here.
Erickson? No. Walker?
Here.
And Chair Lebrecht.
Here.
Okay, you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll let our little tsunami warning go on, reminding us all to be safe. Is there any citizen comments on any subject?
Nobody has signed in.
All right. Let's look at our agenda and get an approval of the agenda and the consent agenda, please.
I move we approve the agenda and consent agenda. Is there?
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we need a vote.
Okay, voting on the approval of today's agenda and consent agenda. Walker?
Yes.
Lemaster?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
And Chair Lebrecht.
Yes.
Okay, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved, and there are no items on the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. There are no special orders, presentations, or reports from what I see here. Is that correct? And nothing on the consent agenda, so we're good. We have no unfinished business at this time, but we do have some new business, and I'd like to turn that over to Vice Chair Ward, if I could.
Super, you may. I'd like to start by thanking everybody for taking the time to be here. This has been a journey. And what I'd like to start with is clarifying why we're here with just a little bit of background. And I have notes because I'm old and I forget. So the Seward Historic Preservation Commission was formed as part of a certified local government agreement between the state of Alaska and the city of Seward. As part of that agreement, HP Commission was assigned specific functions, two of which we will deal with today. The first function, the Historic Preservation Commission was required to write a preservation plan. That was done in 2017 and approved by the City Council. In that document, the Commission listed preservation priorities for the City of Seward. The second function, the Historic Preservation Commission, was to review any CLG grant application to ensure that the proposed grant met some or all of the preservation priorities. If some or all of the priorities were met, then by resolution, the Historic Preservation Commission would support the project. The official resolution is then included on the appropriate page in the grant application and then is reviewed by the State Historic Preservation Office. So I want to be real clear. We are not reviewing the grant for compliance. That is the task of SHPO. We are not reviewing the project implementation plans. SHPO and the City of Seward have that task as part of their grant review. We are not approving the grant application. We are simply looking at the project in terms of whether it falls under Seward's historic preservation priorities and can recommend it to the City Council for the final approval. So that we have a pretty narrow scope. So you've got the grant, I believe it's the grant in front of you. And so the first document that we want to look at will be, I have it all, oh, that's the resolution. It's actually page 62. And that, we can discuss that real quickly. And then the second document you will find on page 59, which is the actual resolution. And before we discuss that, we'll need a motion. All right? Under page 62, you find the goals for the Historic Preservation Historic Preservation of Seward's Historic Preservation Plan, and this was approved by City Council, and there are 5 primary goals. I believe this is taken directly from our 2017 plan. So that's what we have to make sure this project falls under. And I can start the discussion. I'm happy to do it. It's my feeling that a fire suppression system does meet the stated goals as outlined in the grant document. They've listed Goal 1, Goal 2, and Goal 3, and the reasons for that are pretty clear. I think it's also in Seward's interest to protect not only Brown and Hawkins, but the entire west side of the street. We all know the east side of 4th Avenue burned in the 1940s. This means the west side is still at its heart pioneer construction, with B&H as the most prominent and vulnerable. I also believe it's very important that CLG projects are looked at carefully. Not every CLG project should have the involvement of the city. But I believe due to the historic nature of Brown and Hawkins, the impact of the Darling family and the building on the history of not only Seward, but the state of Alaska, its prominent position downtown, we as a commission should support this project to protect that history. And I have one last personal comment, is I know for a fact that Hugh Darling was very much interested in putting a fire suppression system in Brown and Hawkins. It protects not only his family's legacy, but the legacy that that building has brought to the state. So I would be very much in support. Having read through this particular document on page 62, it's pretty clear that this meets at least 3 of the 5 stated goals under the 2017 plan. And I think that's our critical, looking for a word. That's what we should be looking
mandate.
at. Yeah, critical mandate. So that's all I have to say on the subject. Anybody else?
Anyone else have anything else that you want to add? I would simply add, first of all, thank you so much, Vice Chair Ward, for really elucidating what this is all about. Really, our goal from the time that we were apart from P&Z was really to be able to handle the historic part of construction and all those kind of things, recommendations and so on. We're not a governing body that's telling people what they have to do. We're not encumbering the city to do anything. We're simply looking at the value that we started with our 2017 plan, the value of the buildings and the value to Seward from so many different ways. I would say that also that as it relates to this particular project, just to make sure that there's no misunderstanding, that the CLG grant is only covering a very small part of what that entire investment is going to be to that building. It is much, much, much more than just a little part that the city would be involved in. So there's a substantial investment that's made there to protect the west side there, to protect that building, and to protect so that we don't have a situation like we've had before where a whole side necessarily of the street catches fire and goes on. So just to keep in mind again that this is just a recommendation from us based on the information that we have available to us. We're not administering it. This is not like the walking tour that we did where we administered everything from the beginning on. It does require the involvement and the support of the city and through the city council as well too, and has been encouraged by the State Historic Preservation Office because they see great value in that building as well. So I think you said it all. I don't think I can say it better than you did.
I had time to plan.
Thank you very much. So I believe it's within what our mandate is to preserve this city and its historical buildings. That's all.
Great. My one recommendation from an administration level is that on the resolution that you created, you say recommending the city manager accept and pass through federal funding. With the CLG grant, we're not passing it through. We would be administering it to the organization of the Darling Family Trust. So I would request that that phrase be adjusted to accept and administer federal funding.
Right. I think what we'll do is can we have a motion to accept the resolution in a second? And then we'll open it up for discussion and we can make that change. It's simply draft form, so we can make any changes on the resolution we see fit. So if we're ready to do that, I make a motion to accept the resolution.
I'll second it.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, so any other discussion? And let's get the changes you wanted.
So from an administration standpoint, I would recommend amending the resolution to say, recommending the city manager accept and administer federal funding
And where are we looking at?
at the very top of the resolution on page
the
59.
title. I was going. Recommending the city manager, say that again?
Accept and administer federal
And
funding.
rather than pass through?
Yes, we're not passing through the federal funding.
Okay,
It's
so
still all
accept
within
and
the
administrate.
city's responsibility.
Perfect. Federal funding approved by the, all right. Any other changes to the resolution?
Before we get too far along, can we make that an official amendment?
I was gonna ask you, I was gonna amend it all and then ask you what we needed to do to make that official. But if you want to do it every time we make it, that's fine, Chris.
It's best to do them one at a time.
Okay.
In case not everyone agrees on all
Right.
the amendments.
Okay,
So would
sounds
someone
good.
like to make the amendment and make a motion for the amendment?
I'll amend it.
And I'll second.
And could you please state the amendment for the record? The change to the title?
The city manager
Accept and administer
administrate
federal funding.
federal
provided.
funding provided by the State Department. There you go. Was that good? Is that enough for you there, Chris?
Yeah, just give me a second here to
Yeah,
catch
no
up. So
problem.
on the title of the resolution, where it says recommending the city manager to accept and pass through federal funding, instead it's going to say recommending the city manager accept and
Administer.
administer
Yeah.
federal funding, and then the rest is the same.
to the state. Any other changes, people?
Or do we want to read it to record or anything?
I have one last change as well. if
Okay,
you don't
no,
mind. On the last whereas, you say the city of Seward supports this project as it protects. Since it hasn't officially gone to council yet, you can't say that the city of Seward supports this project. It would be the Historic Preservation Commission supports this project.
Perfect.
Just semantics there.
No, we need semantics.
Yeah.
This is, it's a long resolution with lots of detail and semantics matter. So that would be historic preservation?
Yes, it's just clarifying that you're not making any statements on behalf of the council, you're recommending to the council.
Exactly, which we want to make very clear. Okay, so can we have a second amendment motion, please?
I would motion that.
Okay, hang on just a second here, let's vote on the first.
I thought we were going to list them out and then.
My apologies, Chris.
It's all good, we'll work through this. So,
Donna
Commissioner Walker,
Walker.
you made the motion for that amendment, and who seconded?
I did.
Okay. All right, so we are going to vote on the amendment for the title for the city manager to accept and administer the funding. Okay. Lemaster,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
and Chair LeBrecq.
Yes.
Okay, that motion has been approved. Now, the main motion as
Still on the
amended is
floor.
back on the floor. And it sounds like...
It's second amendment, yeah, second amendment.
Proposing the second amendment, whereas we strike the word City of Seward on the very last one. It says, whereas the Historic Preservation Commission supports this project.
Can I get a motion and a second on that amendment?
Can I motion that myself?
Yep.
I just did.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, are you ready to vote on that amendment?
Yep.
Okay, voting on the amendment to modify the last whereas to say that the Historic Preservation supports the project rather than the City of Seward. Walker,
Yes.
Lemaster,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
and Chair LeBrecq.
Yes.
Okay, that amendment has been approved, and now the main motion as amended is back on the floor.
Any other changes?
No other changes. My only thing, just because of our audience, would be, is it worth reading it through? so that people who may not have it in their hands know what we have.
I'm not opposed if you want to read it.
Shall we?
I say, yes.
All right.
Goes out to the citizens if anybody's watching.
Anyone want to volunteer?
Well, as the clerk, I usually read the
Yeah.
resolution titles anyway. I could
Let's do it.
Go for it,
Get it in the record, thank you.
Okay. Historic Preservation Commission Resolution 2023-003. A resolution of the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Seward, Alaska, supporting the Brown and Hawkins Fire Suppression System project for the historical building located at 205, 207, and 209 4th Avenue, and recommending the city manager to accept and administer the federal funding provided by the Alaska Department of Natural Resources.
We'll read through the rest.
Want to read the whole thing?
I think we should, so it'd be on record for those who might watch it.
Okay. Whereas Brown and Hawkins was founded in 1903 by T.W. Hawkins and Charles E. Brown as a mercantile and grocery store that provided settlers with supplies, and whereas one of Alaska's first banks was operated in Brown and Hawkins, which to this day remains preserved within the building, along with many other stories of not only Seward's history, but Alaska's and the nation's history as well. And whereas the recent fire in Lahaina, Hawaii has touched home to Seward as we remember and never forget our own history of when the east side of 4th Avenue entirely burnt down, as the code and construction of our historic buildings leave our history vulnerable. And whereas Brown and Hawkins is recognized by the United States and the state as it is recorded on the National Register of Historic Places, the state's Register of Historic Places, and Seward's list of historic places. And whereas Brown and Hawkins recently was selected by the National Park Service for a Historic American Buildings survey that will be completed November 2023, and the survey will be recorded in the nation's Library of Congress. And whereas Brown and Hawkins hosted President Harding in 1923, as well as President Obama in Sweet Darlings in 2015. And whereas the City of Seward recognizes the importance and value of partnership opportunities with local organizations and their United States and state governments. And whereas the Darling Family Trust, owners of Brown and Hawkins, have requested bids to install fire suppression system at Brown and Hawkins buildings. And whereas 3 contractors have submitted bids to equip 205, 207, and 209 4th Avenue with a fire suppression system. And whereas the Resurrection Day Historical Society finds the project to greatly contribute to the preservation of Seward's history and is sponsoring the project. And whereas the total project cost is estimated to be $337,844, of which $50,000 of the project is to be federally funded through the Alaska Department of Natural Resources Certified Local Government Grant CLG program. And whereas to complete the CLG grant application, a City Council and Historic Preservation Commission resolution must be passed and approved. And whereas the City of Seward, or due to the amendment, whereas the Historic Preservation Commission supports this project as it protects and preserves Brown and Hawkins, and it highly supports the preservation and safety of Seward's history that is important to both the state of Alaska and the United States history. And now therefore be it resolved by the Historic Preservation Commission that Section 1, the Historic Preservation Commission makes the recommendation to the City Council to direct the city manager to authorize and accept federal funds from the Department of Natural Resources for the installation of a fire suppression system located at 205, 207, and 209 4th Avenue. Section 2, the Historic Preservation Commission recommends the City Finance Department to be authorized to withhold 2% of all funds received to cover the cost incurred to the city to process the grant funding. In Section 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. All right. That completes new business information items and reports. We have a reminder here that the next regular meeting will...
You have to-
You need to keep going?
You haven't
I was
voted
gonna
on
say-
it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I missed it.
No.
I got sidetracked into we read, so sorry about that.
Yeah, I was like, do we vote?
Were you ready to vote on the
Yeah.
approval of the resolution as amended? Okay, so this is the final vote on this resolution. All amendments, both of those amendments are included in this vote. Ward,
Yes.
Lemaster,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
and Chair LeBrecq.
Most definitely, yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved as amended.
Thank you. All right. Our next, so moving on to our next reminder meetings. Our next meeting is on Thursday, November 9th, 2023. And just seeing if we have any other citizen comments or anybody that's watching or anyone that's dialed in or anything that has comments. None? All right. Then commission comments. First of all, I'd just like to start off by saying thank you very much to our city manager for helping guide us through this and support as well too, showing us the way. Thank you, our clerk, Chris, for helping us organize all of this as well too, and keeping us on the straight and narrow and making sure that this meeting happens. So we're very grateful for that. Now opening it up to comments from my fellow commissioners.
Well, I have some comments. As you all know, I'm not a fan of special meetings, so it's kind of ironic that I got put in charge of this. But I have to say that I could not have done it without the support and the help of Kat Sorensen, our city manager, and Chris Peck, our city clerk. We tried to establish a new process, and I'm a process person, so I can't tell you how much I appreciated. And I appreciated your patience with the innumerable emails that I forwarded to everybody and their brother. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support, and very grateful. Also, I would like to say thank you to my fellow commissioners, but especially to Tanguy LeBrecq, Commissioner LeBrecq, for all of his support, particularly at the time of great personal loss. My condolences, Tanguy, but I really appreciate your support through this whole thing.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Walker?
Any comments?
No. Commissioner Lemaster?
Thank you for your input here. This is spot on.
All right. Do you have any comments from administration?
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words.
You've got big supporters.
No, thanks.
All right, well, all this in the interest of just the great history in the city of Seward and recognizing all that. So thank you, everybody, for that. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, we are adjourned at 12:23 p.m.
Great.